Okay, so what we had talked about before was how we can actually convert metric units using the stair-step method. So that's actually kind of a review for you, but what we want to actually do is look at how we can convert any units. And specifically, sometimes we need to convert our SI units. Because what happens is sometimes you need to get the units to be all the same, but they're not. Certain calculations you have to actually have your units to be all the same. Let's say they need to be all in kilograms, but for instance our balances only measure in grams, not kilograms. Sometimes I also will measure things in our US standard system, our customary units, but we need things in metric. So the unit or the method that we can do to use this is the factor label method. It's also called dimensional analysis. What it does is it's a mathematical way. So this is actually a mathematical method that I'm teaching you to convert from the units you have to the units that you want or the units that you need. So what you do is to get rid of the units that you don't want, you design a ladder type setup or a train track. And then what happens is when you put the units in correctly, the numbers will cancel just like they would, or the units actually cancel just like the numbers in a fraction. And the easiest way to actually show you this is to do an example. And this is the example that is in your notes. How many liters are there in 3,650 milliliters? Now, based on what we learned before, we know that we can actually just jump the decimal point. And the reason why I use some of these as examples are because that way then you can actually double check your work. But we will see on some of the other examples that we have on the in-class practice that you have, you can't always do that, and that makes things a little bit more challenging to actually just jump the decimal. All right, so let's get started here. Let me make it so that I can write on the board. Okay. All right, and let me pick a color that we can actually see. Okay, so how many liters are there in 3,650 milliliters? So what we're actually doing is we're saying 3,650 milliliters is equal to how many liters? Now, what you do is you actually start with a setup like this, okay? And here in this top square here, you're going to put the value that you start with, 3,650 milliliters, okay? Now, in this next one here, the second part of our setup, you're actually going to use something called a conversion factor. And that conversion factor is that half sheet of paper that I gave to you. These are the ones that you actually have to memorize. Okay. There are other conversion factors that we have, for instance, linking, let's say, milliliters to cubic centimeters, inches to centimeters, different things like that. If they're not ones that are listed on that paper, they will always be provided for you. Now, if I look on that half sheet of paper, I have a conversion factor that relates milliliters and liters. If you look in the volume column, it tells you that I have 1,000 milliliters is equal to 1 liter. And that is the conversion factor I'm going to use in the second spot here. However, I need to place those in here appropriately so that my units will cancel. If my unit up top here is milliliters, in order to get that to go away and to cancel, I need to put my unit of milliliters down here on the bottom. Then, what I need to do is I'm going to put the other part of my conversion factor, the liters, here up on top. Now I can fill in the numbers. We know that 1 liter is the same thing as 1,000 milliliters. This second step is literally just the same thing as multiplying by 1. We're just changing the units, that's all we're doing. Once I have this set up, my milliliters unit here on the top and my milliliters unit here on the bottom will cancel each other out. Then what I do is I take the two numbers that are across the top and I multiply them. So 3,650 times 1 gives me 3,650. If I look at the numbers on the bottom, this spot here doesn't have any, so we don't need that. So the only number here is 1,000. If I had more, I would actually go ahead and multiply them just like I did along the top. So my last step is in my calculator to punch in 3,650 divided by 1,000. And when I do that, it comes up as 3.65. And the unit is this remaining unit that did not cancel, and that unit is liters. Now, if you want some extra help with the in-class practice, you can actually look at the video that I have up here going through those in-class practice problems.